Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ashley. If you are new, welcome, and if you're not new, thank you so much for coming back for another video. In today's video, we are talking about the Enduring Love palette by Sydney Grace. So I picked this up during their Christmas in July sale. On the first day, they were having a special buy, spend $55, you get, their new Chase Your Dreams palette free. So this is one of the things that I picked up, and I picked it up in the deep version. As you probably know, this has a light version and a deep version. So if you want to see my review of this palette, you want to see how I achieved these two looks, and just hear my thoughts on, whether you should look into getting this palette when it comes back in stock, definitely stay tuned. Alright guys, so let's talk through the looks. I'm going to talk about how I achieved the looks as you're seeing me apply the eyeshadow. So for the first eye, we have a very colorful, statement, bright, fun look. And to achieve this look, I started off using Ruth. It is the dark bluish kind of turquoise shade in the palette. It's a metallic. I put that on the outer V. Put that on the outer V, blew that out into the transition area a bit, and then to blend the lines that I achieved with that, I went in with Passion. Passion is a nice gray in the palette, and I think that's a nice shade you can use in the crease if you are my skin tone, but if you're a little darker, you can use that as a cool tone transition shade. But it is nice. It blended out the Ruth shade very nicely. Put that in the transition and blended that way. Okay, and then to get more of a transition from that passion shade to the rest of my skin, I went in with Juliet, and this is a more neutral toned, lighter pink, like a rose, like a very light rose tone. I used that a little bit towards the inner corner of the transition area, as well as just right above the passion shade. Now I don't see too much of a difference when I apply that, but it's just something to add a little bit more fading of that gray shade. I did cut my crease a little bit, did like a half cut crease with the with my concealer. And on the lid, I took in Elizabeth on my finger and pressed that right next to Ruth and brought that over to the outer V, or to the inner corner a little bit of the cut crease, or the top portion of the cut crease I left open because I do like to sometimes use a different shade between the top of the cut crease and the my actual mobile lid. And so for that portion, I used Devotion. It's a nice, I want to kind of call it a little subtle rose gold, but it's like a champagne. It's a champagne shade with a very hint. I think it has a hint of like pink to it, very subtle. And so I took another brush, a very precise brush, and applied that close to that cut crease line to get that nice cut crease effect. And then with that same brush, I brought that onto the inner third of the lid, overlapping Elizabeth, so we have that effect there. And to re-intensify the cut crease, I went with a precise brush and took Ruth, the dark blue, or the blue metallic, and I reinforced that crease by lining the cut crease so you can get more of that cut crease effect. Okay, on the lower lash line, I took Passion, that gray shade that we use in the transition area, and I did blend that on the lower lash line, probably about halfway into the lower lash line, and then took Elizabeth, the pink metallic shade that we used on the lid. I blended that on the lower lash line for probably the inner third. I took on the inner corner Devotion around the inner corner and spread that a little bit onto the lower lash line. And for the brow bone highlight, I took Romeo. So this is, I would say it's more of like a satin. It's not like super foiled, it's not super shiny. I think it's perfect for the brow bone, and it looks very similar to Juliet, but just in a more satin type of a finish. And so that is the eye look there, the very, you know, colorful look that you see here. Very pretty, I think. And then let's talk about the more neutral toned, a little bit more subdued, still glam, super glam, but you know, nothing real colorful. All right, I did want to go in with one of these taupe shades just to see how it shows up on my skin tone. So I went into the transition area with Cherish. Cherish is a lighter, it's a little lighter than Victoria, but they both still have this taupe tone to it, which lends them, they lend themselves to be a little bit more gray toned. They're not as warm, so I would call these, you know, cool toned, Victoria and Cherish cool toned shades. But I took Cherish, the lighter of the two, and I took that in the transition area, all over the transition area. And then for the outer V, I went in with Robert, and that is the darkest brown shade in the palette. It is a little bit more neutral in tone, and it has a decent depth to it. So if you want to do a little, you know, a subtle depth in the outer V, I think that would be a good shade for you if you are my skin tone, of course. So I put that there, and that looked nice for a little setup for the rest of the eye look. And so I went in on the lid with Albert, that is the gray metallic in the palette, and I put that all over the lid up through to the outer V to make sure that kind of blended over Robert nicely. And then for the inner corner of the lid, I did take John. John is, I would say, a cool toned like gold. It's really like a really bright silvery kind of gold. It's not, you know, your typical gold that you might expect. So yeah, it is bright, like a bright, I want to say platinum gold, kind of like a silvery gold. I already said that, but you guys know. So I took that and I put that on the inner third of the lid, and then with a brush I did take that up a little bit into the transition area and pulled that out over to the towards the outer V, but above, you guys know, you can see what I'm doing. All right, and so also I forgot to mention that I took Darcy, the nice pink tone in the palette, like a deep rose pink. I took that on the inner area of the transition area, the inner shade, the inner portion of the transition area, and blended that out over into the rest of the transition area. So it adds a nice little pink hint to the front portion of my lid. Okay. On the lower lash line, I took Abigail. I swept that all over the entire lower lash line, and when I did use John, I took that over to the inner corner as well and just brought that a little bit down onto the lower lash line. And to deepen up the outer V a little bit more, I did go in with Boaz, that is the black in the palette, and just tapped that onto the outer corner and then did a nice blend there. And so for the brow bone, I did once again use Romeo on my brow bone area for a subtle brow bone highlight. And so for both eyes, finishing touches, I did use the Pat McGrath liquid eyeliner, and then the new Dark Star mascara on the top and bottom lashes. Oh, but I did also, before I put the mascara on, I did go in with the L'Oreal lash primer, the voluminous lash primer. Do I have that here? I have it here. Yeah. Voluminous lash primer right here. This is what it looks like. So those are the, you know, eyes. Okay, those are the eye looks. So let's talk about the palette. So I do like this palette. So I did these two looks for you guys on camera, but I did play with this palette off of camera once. So I did play with, I have through all these looks gotten to use all of the shades, and I can say that I do really like this palette. I mean, Sydney Grace, if you are familiar with their shadows, they're always very high quality. I didn't have any trouble with blending any of the shades out. The shine on the metallics is absolutely beautiful. As you guys can see, no glitter glue is necessary. I do like using glitter glue on most of my looks. I just haven't been for the past couple of times that I've used the Sydney Grace palettes. I don't know why, I just haven't felt like putting it on, I guess. But you can see the shine that you get and the intensity without needing a glitter glue. So that's really fantastic. I did have a question from one of my subscribers, Nikki. She asked if any of the shades in this palette are ashy. And so I wanted to mention to you guys that I'm going to point out this shade here, which is Cherish, and then this shade here, which is Victoria. They are very similar. Looking at them in the pan, you can see a subtle difference in the tones. One is darker, Victoria is darker than Cherish. However, they both have that, see, these are the two shades. My middle finger has Victoria and this one has Cherish. Now, you can see that there is a subtle difference in these two shades. However, they both have that kind of like grayish, taupe-ish tone to them. So, if you do not care for that type of a tone, then you're not gonna care for those two shades. They're both swatched right there and they look so very similar in the swatch on my skin tone and even in application. And so applying them on the lids, on the, you know, in the transition area, you do get that kind of grayish effect. However, I don't want to say that that makes them ashy. I think that that's just the overall tone of this palette. It is a very, I would say, neutral to cool toned palette. There's nothing warm about the palette at all, but that is a drawback, that these two are similar. So I don't want to call them ashy, but they are so similar and they have that kind of taupe-ish, grayish base to them. So that's up to you whether or not you think they look ashy. I don't think it looks ashy. It's just the undertone of them, I think. And here we have Juliet. So this is another light tone in the palette, and it has a little bit more of a pink hue to it, but these three shades all kind of have a similar effect going on. This is Juliet here, right there. And so they all show up a little bit, you know, lighter than you might desire, but that's just three of the shades out of the palette. The rest of them are very, you know, they're very distinct in their tones on the skin. So that would be a drawback to me, that these three shades, you know, they have a similar effect on them. They're all light toned on the skin. I would say the best one out of the three is this one, Victoria. It, you know, it has that, you know, a little bit more depth than these two. So if anything, those would be the two shades that might be a little iffy if you know, use the palette. Now, everything else performs beautifully. So I think the quality is here with the shadows. It's just a matter of yeah, it's just a matter of whether you or not you enjoy this color story. Just when I saw it come out last year, I think it didn't really speak to me. So that's why it took me so long to get it. But you know, I'm happy I have it. All the shades perform nicely, and I don't think you'll be disappointed if you enjoy the color story. Okay, so yeah, I like all the names of the shades and stuff, that they all represent some type of love to the creators, you know, of Sydney Grace and the, you know, minds behind Sydney Grace. So I think that's pretty cool. I like that you can get some bright colorful looks out of this palette, but then you also have a lot of options for your neutrals. So really the only bright and colorful shadows are these three, and everything, if you get rid of these and this one, then you've got a pretty neutral toned eyeshadow palette. Oh, and if you do want to see the look that I created before this look, then definitely check out my community tab, because I did you know, provide a picture. I did not set, you know, add, you know, catch powder like some people like to call it, or I didn't bake under my eyes to catch any fallout, and I haven't had any fallout at all with the shadows. Even when I was using that blue on a brush, I didn't see any fallout. So I think, you know, if you're concerned with that, I don't think you need to be concerned with it. And then I didn't have a lot of kick up in the pan when using any of the shades either. So yeah, I'm trying to think of, did I mention everything? I think I did. So yeah, if you're curious about this face, I am wearing the new Tom Ford foundation. I'm in the middle of doing a wear test with that foundation. So if you want to see that wear test, the results of that, definitely check out the video uploaded previous to this. Okay. And yeah, for the lips, I do have on the Pat McGrath Blitz Trance lipstick in the shade Flesh 3. Okay, it's a little bit of her Ground Control lip liner, you know, on the outer perimeter of the lips. So alright guys, if you enjoyed this video, definitely give it a thumbs up. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed filming it for you. I hope you enjoyed the looks. Let me know in the comment section which look you preferred, which look you like better, and also let me know if you have the palette or if you have any intention on picking up the palette. I like it. I like it. I think you might enjoy it as well. So definitely leave that up to you guys. All right, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more videos from me like this, then definitely hit subscribe. I upload videos on luxury makeup and then the occasional indie brand makeup as well. So if you want to see those videos, definitely hit the subscribe button and click the bell. All right, I will be talking to you guys really soon. Thank you guys so much for watching. See ya.